Sure. I'm Jimmy Williams. I'm the son of Ralph and Ruthie Williams. I was not born here, but I grew up here from like the time I was 3 days old and went to school here. Grew up here, worked at Weatherby's, had a whole career there and stuff. But growing up, it was great. I grew up with a great bunch of friends. It was Peter Yates, Pam Yates, and Calvin Brown, Frankie Bagley, Bernie and Chicky Calligan, Susan Wheaton, Sally Ann Nason. And that's what really bonds me to this town, is the friends you grow up with and just being in the town. A lot of the things that I remember is being outside all the time, whether it was summer, spring, winter, or fall, and playing. One of the things that's dear to me, and having all those friends, and I always get a kick of and make a reference to, is I grew up here, had a wonderful life, and a lot of it was because I had so many mothers. All of us kids growing up, our mothers had a network that was unbelievable. And we would be out of the house from basically daylight to dark and beyond. But our mothers always knew what we were up to, what we were doing, what we had done. Their network was great. And I can remember, too, getting caught in a few things where maybe we weren't supposed to be doing. And if one mother caught us, we all got the same treatment. So there was no, wait, you better go home, I'm telling you Mother X. We got the treatment, and then they told their mother, too, and we got it again. And that was, that's very beneficial, because you basically start learning values that way. Actions takes consequences. And you start learning it early on here in Grand Lake. Some of the other of my favorite memories here is right here in this little schoolhouse. That's where I started from kindergarten all the way to 6th grade before we got sent to Woodland. And then, down here in this little gym, this used to be a gym. And my favorite teacher of all time, Mrs. Calligan, would have us down there, and she taught us how to play basketball down here. We learned how to do the Virginia reel down here. And it was funny, because if you look at a bunch of kids and stuff around here, we didn't all even girls to boys and all that stuff. Some of us who were the younger ones, Chicky Calligan and myself, sometimes had to be over on the girls' side to do the Virginia reel. But that again, it's all lessons learned. You learn how to play together, how to get along together, and all those different things. Cindy, I think that the fact that we're in such a small town and everybody knows everybody, and growing up here was such a great opportunity. I was lucky enough, I almost consider I started my career working at Weatherby's. I was the cabin boy, chore boy up at Weatherby's for a number of years. I remember first going up there as a little kid, working for Bev, pulling weeds out of his gardens, and I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I worked my way up to be the cabin boy. I learned how to drive a car up the Weatherby's, driving his old, I think it was a 52 green DeSoto with on the column, shift on the column. People don't know what that is. And I could drive that. I just drove it around, pulling canoes out to the lakes and different things like that. I was maybe 14, 15, didn't have my license yet. So when I finally got my license, I got hired on as the chore boy. And I did it a number of times. The other great thing about being at Weatherby's hired girls from the University of Maine to come down and work as the waitresses and stuff. And I was lucky enough to meet my wife there. And so that goes on for my life and stuff. So it worked out well, and I'm still married, and we're looking at 48 years this year, and it's what a terrific, I don't know how I'm so blessed to have such a beautiful wife and that stuff. Other things that I learned from this town too is going out through my career. And when I graduated from high school, I did a couple of years at Beale College. Then I joined the Navy and got to do the job I wanted to do as an air traffic controller. I was enlisted. And I was fortunate enough, as I went through my career, and that first enlistment and stuff, to learn, the things you learn back when you were a kid, working together, compromising, learning the different values and things, how it applies to a lot of stuff that you do out in life. And it doesn't matter, if you're in Pensacola, Florida, or out at sea in a ship or something. You got to work together, you're a team, and make things work. I was very lucky, too, in the Navy, and I give credit to this little school and Mrs. Calligan and all the teaching she did, is keep your eyes open to opportunities. Don't get tunnel vision. And because of that, I took advantage of a lot of the programs in the Navy, and I was lucky enough to get a commission and become an officer. And I did 22 years plus in the Navy. I retired on a Friday, And lucky enough, I went to work as a civilian on Monday in Department of Defense and did another career. And all of those, I give credit to where you come from and what you learn and take advantage of and how you learn things and be open-minded. The other thing you learn about this town is you do get your values and things, and then you learn everybody's perspective on things. This town has a great reputation of being aware of just the area itself, and that I mean the conservation, our environment. You know, we've always had the fish hatchery in town, always pro on keeping that up. Life in this town, its livelihood has been fishing and hunting. My dad, Morris's dad, all of our dads were guides, and that was their livelihood. And those guys, they would work for like 17 bucks a day and had to supply everything. And it wasn't because they didn't take that job because that was their career and they're gonna make a lot of money of it. They did it because they loved being outside. And what they brought to this town, the people that came in, the sports as we'd call them, what they got to see in this town. A lot of times they got to see more than we did as kids. But you know, there's all this part of our history that comes up. Now I'm fortunate when I come back home, all those feelings come in. From the time, you know, you come across Route 9, you're driving up through Woodland and Princeton, you know, to the time you turn off Route 1 and you head on the Grand Lake Road and you hit Musquash, that's when it kind of feels like, I'm home. And it feels like that all the time. And I get emotional about it. And, you know, that's what it is. Because I realize all those old folks I knew, all those old guides, you know, the Valmores and Walter Browns and the Leslie Browns and Ollie Whites, they're all gone, and that's a tradition that's gone on. And you're not seeing that quite anymore. But what it is, it's in your heart, it's in your brain, so it'll always be there and stuff. Yeah, so it's a very special place for me.
I started remembering more when we got to the fish hatchery house, when Dad took the job at the fish hatchery. And we lived right beside the school, so got to play on the school grounds and then play on the baseball diamond. But I went to school here for 6 years before I went to Woodland. So, and I had my mom teach me for 2 or 3 years, which was a little strange, you know. I mean, Mom, I know my brother would walk over with her, and he said one time, he says, Mom, and he always had to stop calling her Mom when he got to the walkway that went into the school. And then he says, Mom, he says, I like you, but he says, sometimes Mrs. Calligan I don't like. He had her a little longer than I did, so yeah, we had classes here in one of the rooms, and it was 1 through 4th grade and then 5th through 8th grade, but I didn't make it through the 8th. I went to junior high in Woodland, and so that's about 64, I guess, that I went to Woodland, and things were different then. But it was great growing up here, and the kids were really all friendly with each other and hang around with each other because we went to school and you were all in the same classroom. It was just everything you did together, you know. So it was great growing up as a group like that. So we were all pretty close.
What kind of things did you do after school?
Oh, wow. Well, this in Grand Lake, it's almost like summer camp year round up here. I mean, you just, all the opportunities to do anything and everything you wanted to do. I mean, we probably wore our bathing suit all summer long, rode bikes on it, played baseball, went swimming. You just went from one thing to the other. I mean, it was a great place to grow up. You got the opportunity to do the fishing and the hunting and snowmobiling, skiing. I can remember when we'd jump on our sleds and up on the top of Weatherby Hill there and could go all the way right down the main road. Slide with your sleds, you know, and we had a lot of fun doing that and building forts and stuff like that. So, and the kids in Grand Lake were always pretty tight. Well, I think the community as a whole, I mean, growing up, all the adults looked after us. We could run all over the town. We had the run of the mill, you know, they all looked after us. You'd go into the Pine Tree store and they'd be on the liar's bench and telling stories. And we'd always go in because they teased us. And we always liked to get teased and whatnot. So you could go to anybody's house And we all got cookies or whatever, brownies and whoopie pies all over town, so you knew where to go to get something to eat. And the whole town basically looked after the kids, and they were a close-knit community. I know, that one thing that my mother taught school, and when we got out at school break, we'd go to camp for the whole 3 months. And so that's why I guess I'm a camp rat now, because we grew up, no running water, you had gas lights and gas stove, and you played cribbage and cards and stuff like that. And so it just instilled that kind of life into me. So it's an enjoyment to come back here and be able to do that stuff growing up, because it's basically your innocent years that it was carefree. And you didn't have the rat race and all the traffic. Like I said before, you could play in the streets here and ride your bikes, and it was that kind of town that everybody looked after you.
Tell me about the Liar's Bench. Why is it called the Liar's Bench?
Well, it's just the stories told there, with the different adults that was there, Val Moore and Ollie White and Eddie Chambers, and that group there would always be sitting on their bench talking and whatnot and telling stories. So they called it the Liar's Bench, and it was always comical to go in there, but we really enjoyed listening to their stories. Yeah, I can remember one time we were down behind Paul Hoare's store, the Pine Tree Store, and we were playing. It was Frank Bagley, Jim Williams, my brother and I, Chuck, and got in a hornet's nest, a real bad one. I don't know if we were putting the rocks to it or whatever, but it got onto us real bad. And of course, I could run pretty good, so I beat feet and Chuck beat feet. But Frank and Jimmy was just getting stung galore. So we run up around the front, and I know that it was the same guys, Val Moore and a bunch of them sitting there out front, and they took those kids and took all the shirt and stuff and t-shirt right off them, and whacking and got the hornets right off them. It was kind of comical now, but not at the time.